Hey everybody, I'm Amanda with DevExpress and welcome to Launch Week 15.1. Today's webinar, What's New for Winforms and WPF, presented by DevExpress Technical Evangelist Paul Usher and DevExpress CTO Julian Bucknall. In this webinar, learn about the new products and features shipping inside our updated Winforms and WPF subscriptions. All right, thank you so much for joining us. I will now hand things over to Paul and Julian.
Thanks, Amanda, and good morning, everyone. I can't believe that we're already into day 2 of launch week, and we've got another whole swag of presentations coming up this week for you. Good morning, Mr. Bucknall. You there with me today?
Of course I am, Paul. Do you think I was going to let you do this on your own? No
well,
way.
There were rumours.
There were rumours, yes. Yes, the jet lag is almost gone, so I am awake, and so you don't have to do it on your own.
Yeah, excellent.
So how are we going to split this up?
Well, since my name's first on the slide, I want to take Winforms.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I think because Winforms is more of the traditional framework, I should do it since I'm more traditional.
Well, nice try.
Okay. You do Winforms, I'll do WPF.
Sounds good. I think what we want to start with, Julian, is just to express the fact that desktop development is not going anywhere. It really is still the most widely used platform, both by our customers and the development community in general. I mean, yes, there's a lot of focus on web and mobile, but the number of people still pushing for new controls inside our suites is just amazing. And I also think that WPF is the best starting point if you're wanting to future-proof your development career. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. You're quite right. I mean, desktop programming or thick client programming, especially on Windows, is just not going to go away. Yes, I know that Microsoft are going to be releasing Windows 10 on July 29th. I think that was the date. But still, your Winforms applications, your WPF applications are still going to work on Windows 10. Obviously, if you're using Windows 7, like I am, as you'll see later on, I'm still using Windows 7 on this particular machine. The desktop is there. It's not going to go away. And the thing about WPF with regard to Winforms is it works on exactly the same versions of Windows as Winforms does, and it's a nice stepping stone, or as we got here, the starting point, a stepping stone for learning about XAML. You can, take your legacy app that you're continually updating, you're continually adding new features to, but you could, if you really wanted to, add features in WPF to that application. It's ways of doing it. So it's a great way to learn about XAML, and it'll stand you in good stead for the future with the universal Windows platform coming up, and obviously things like Xamarin. Xamarin are using XAML in their Xamarin Forms product. Oh, and also I do believe that you are going to be continuing your series on programming with WPF.
That I am. We'll be commencing or recommencing that in July, heading into August, with some real-world examples and some best practices and tips to move from Winforms to WPF. But today, Julian, we've got to focus on what's new, and it worries me a little bit that there's so much being packed into this update that we're not going to get through absolutely everything. So let's move along. I'm going to take you through what's new in Winforms, and Julian will be updating you with what's changed or what's been added to our WPF suite. Now,
I'd just like to point out that what you, the audience, are going to see is a lot of new things which are actually common to both platforms. So Paul will be demonstrating something in Winforms, and later on I'll just say, yes, that's available in WPF as well. So just be aware that we'll try and keep them separate, but there's going to be a lot of commonality between the presentations.
Absolutely. Now, even though it's only about 6 months since our last major update, the teams worked tirelessly and they've come up with some really cool new functionality. What we're going to look at today is the accordion control, a new navigation pane, the single document interface navigation frame, added support for MVVM patterns inside WinForms. We've got a really cool camera control, the Adorner UI Manager, and of course RTL support. Now, before you ask, because I know you're going to, RTL stands for right to left. So I'll explain a little bit more when we get to it, but we've added support for the Hebrew and Arabic style languages inside the majority of our WinForms components now.
That's excellent news. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who have been waiting for this and been listening to me say over the years saying we're not doing it, we're not doing it, we're not doing it. Well, we've done it. We've added right to left language support in 15.1.
Yeah. Now, in addition to the new components, we've also got enhancements to a number of our other things, such as the extra grid, the tree list, pivot grid, some really cool general UI improvements, new things to the spreadsheet control, layout control. We've got some new data providers for maps, changes to reporting, the PDF viewer, document engine, and scheduler. So there is a lot happening inside this release. Obviously, as we've seen from some of the comments, we released Beta 1 just over a week ago, and we've had some really nice feedback from our user groups that had access to that as well. So if you've got a universal subscription, then it is available or has been available for you to play with. A quick note on the PDF document processor. Now, because this is a behind-the-scenes thing, I wanted to just bring it out in the slide first. But between 14.2 and 15.1, there's been some amazing enhancements in that processor engine. You can see from this slide, we did tests on a 3,000-page PDF, so the size of the document was about 100 meg. We've taken the load time in seconds from over 20 seconds in 14.2 to under 5 seconds, or sorry, about 5 seconds in 15.1. That's just a fraction slower than Adobe itself, Julian. And you can see the memory usage has also dropped dramatically. So that's a huge kudos to the PDF team there.
The memory usage, especially, it was, you know, when we first saw the difference, it was like jaw-dropping, the amount of effort the team had put into and the amount of impact that had on the document itself, on the viewer itself, I should say.
Absolutely. Now, you did mention briefly before Windows 10. I don't know if you've noticed, but recently on my Windows machines, I've started getting this little Windows icon appear. And I decided to click it the other day, and hey presto, you can actually reserve your free upgrade already. So when it's available, it will just download and get ready for installation. Now, what I'm going to do to start with is run through the technical demos that are published inside the Demo Center. Of course, any demo that we show you, full source code is available with your installation. And the first thing that I want to take a look at is going to be the accordion control. So I'll just launch the WinForms demo, and I'm going to scoot across to the navigation bar area. Once I launch this demo, we're going to see some really cool functionality. Now, the accordion control is basically an advanced version of the navbar control. We can see on the right-hand side that I've got what would look like a navbar control because I can collapse and expand different elements here. But as you can see, I can also have a hierarchy of sub-elements, and those sub-elements can be made up of many types of different controls. Another example of this may be the auto trader, where we can see I've got my parameters, and here I can filter the grid by bringing this in, and I can also apply different limits here. So you've got to consider it works like an accordion. You can collapse and expand different things. Now, the main features here are the fact that there's an unlimited number of levels. Your items can display both images and text, as well as context buttons. You can actually include custom controls in the headers themselves, as well as being able to provide some nice animation on your grouping collapsing on either single or multiple groups, and you can do that simultaneously. And there is also the ability to do searches within the control. So that's a nice extension on an existing functionality, but a new control called the accordion control. Now, the next thing I want to show you is the navigation pane control, but I'm going to couple this with the camera control as well, because it's a great little concept to bring forth. This control was brought around with our PDF viewer, where we wanted to introduce the ability of looking at multiple pages and bookmarks and other things, and we wanted a really nice way to introduce a static style control pane that could expand sideways or collapse. So inside Visual Studio, I've got the navigation pane control, and you can see we've got this little interface here to allow me to very quickly add or delete existing pages. I can toggle through pages, and you can see in the design window exactly what's happening. And I've just got this dock to the left, so I could place some other controls here on the right. And inside these panels, I've actually placed the new camera control. And I can find that by quickly searching on my Visual Studio toolbox. Dragging the camera control in, there's very little properties to set at runtime. What I can do is I can set things such as the device not available strings, but everything will be available to the user at runtime as well. When I start this application, we're going to see hopefully a side view. There I am, real time, hello world. And of course, using the settings menu, I can quickly switch between cameras that are available to my machine. Here we can see with my little webcam, handycam, that I'm in real time. There's yesterday's presentation ready for viewing. Oops, better not drop that off the desk. And so the camera control allows you to capture real-time footage either as a snapshot or as a video stream. Now, obviously that came from something that were released in the VCL world only a few months ago. Whilst I'm inside here, we can see that this control, the navigation pane, can be collapsed, so it's just on the left now. I can expand it, or I can actually make it full screen. Collapse again, and a great little control for bringing out yet another user element. While I've got Visual Studio available, I also want to just point out the new template gallery. So if you do File New and select the DevExpress 15.1 template gallery, hit OK, there's a new look and feel to the gallery, bringing forth all those different templates. Of course, I can just quickly switch between the different project types and, if necessary, bring up a complete solution, everything down to Winforms UI type applications. So that's quite nice as well. Okay, next we're going to talk about the navigation frame control. If you've been following some of our previous demos, you'll see this, in essence, the concept behind the scenes before. Now, the DevAV Winforms demo, when we release 15.1, will actually show this best, but the idea behind the frame control is the fact that you can utilize one page or a single page element with pages behind or user controls, and it will just let your UI work really transitionally and smoothly. So take this example. This is a hybrid demo. But you can see as I move between pages, you get that sense that a new page is being brought in from behind the scenes. It's got the ability of handling the transitions, and it could be based on groups or pages or user controls themselves. Now, we mentioned as well that we've got support for MVVM, and this is something that I think is starting to take over a lot more. The MVVM pattern obviously has been around for a long time. It's something that's been used by the web developers for quite some time, and of course now using our MVVM library, we're making it possible to actually allow you to incorporate that directly inside Winforms. Here we can see inside the demo center just how simple it is to implement the MVVM patterns inside a traditional Winforms app. And we provide some really nice samples there, including obviously the ability to incorporate Fluent API, we can see some running examples of how to implement the commanding, the services, and different behaviors. We've already looked at the camera control, so next let's talk about another new feature, which is called the Winforms Adorner and UI Manager. We've all played around or worked with applications that bring up a little notification, such as how many emails are unread, or something else that you want to bring to the front of people's attention. So the Adorner UI Manager allows you to do that on any control inside your Winforms application. We can see here that we've got the number 5 sitting on top of target element 1. I can just quickly switch between any active control that I want inside my app. Now, of course, it's not just limited to specific numbers. You can use text. You can come through and change your text color, change whether it's circle, square, change the position, and all the different things that you'd expect. You can change the offset as where it's going to be displayed, change the text back to white, etc. So really handy if you're wanting to highlight some information on your Winforms application to the user. Whilst I'm in this page, I just want to quickly bring to your attention some of the other APIs that have been released. Now, quite often people will say to us things like the form layout control. Is there any way that I can create that inside my code rather than in the designer? Well, the short answer now is yes, because we've opened up the APIs. Here we've got the Document Manager API, which, as you can see, stepping through the different examples, everything can be done inside code, and you can see the result in the top of the screen here. We've also opened up some utility APIs, being able to do things like show standard dialog boxes or do simple animations, etc., all from within your code really, really easily. Now, Julian, I feel like I'm rushing through this, but there's so much to get through. It's really packing everything in.
No, you're doing a grand job, and I'm just trying to keep quiet so I don't interrupt you and, stop the flow, as it were. You're quite right. There is a lot to go through.
Now, some things that we'll either skim over or may not bring to the front straight away because Julian will incorporate them or include them inside his WPF section. Let's take a look at some of the enhancements to the data grid. Start the demo. We've seen the conditional formatting introduced into our spreadsheet control over the last few releases. Now it's available inside your favorite grid control. Simply by selecting the column, right-clicking, and coming now to conditional formatting, you've got some out-of-the-box rules that you can apply to the data inside that column. And remember, you can apply multiple rules as well. So you can have one set of formats or nested formats to really highlight the information you're trying to show. Now, as well as having all this preset information, you've got the ability to come down and manage the rules and create your own set of custom rules as well. So that's some really, really powerful formatting functionality. And that also extends to some other controls. The other really nice feature, I think, is the changes to the customization panel inside the forms. You've now got the ability of actually searching for columns. Now, there was previously a workaround for this, but the team have incorporated that directly into this panel, and that transcends both the columns and the bands, so you can search for a particular thing, and obviously it makes it a lot easier when you're dealing with really large data sets to find that column. Next, we've got the chart controls. I'll just run up the charting demo. One of the things inside the chart control has been the addition of the color, the ability to bind colors to a data set. So not only could you previously go in and manipulate certain things, you can now specify a data set for your colored palettes. We've also extended and brought forth the really quick ability to come in and change those your palette directly on the chart, and some preset appearances. Now, while we're inside the chart editor or the chart demo, we can invoke the brand new looking chart designer. Given all the feedback that our users, that you guys provide, we're able to continuously refactor and enhance the experience for you. Now, not only do you as a developer get to utilize some of this new functionality in the designer, but you can pass this directly on to your end user. You can see, just as I hover over some of these items, how easy it is to turn on and turn off, or even trash functionality or features inside the chart. We can see that there, as we step through, exposing options and other properties to make it a lot simpler to work with the chart as you go through and set it up. There's been a number of performance enhancements inside the chart, in particular when working with large volumes of data. There's been a lot of optimization on memory usage. As far as there's been 2 new series types added to the chart control as well, and that is the scatter radar line and the scatter polar line. And of course, you've got the ability of changing how that data is visualized. And I do know that when Julian shows this particular feature off in WPF, there's some really nice animation being added as well. Let's skip forth to the pivot grid. Now, the pivot grid has had a brand new Excel export engine. I have to be careful how I say that. It sounds like I'm stuttering. But just the same as our grid controls, the pivot grid now has the ability of exporting Excel style data with that new engine. It incorporates things such as data grouping, fixed columns, cell formatting, so we'll actually export the number formats, and whether you want to actually export the data as display text or values. There's also been some major improvements in the performance, particularly with OLAP mode. And so what happens now is the data is sorted or grouped or filtered on the client side, which speeds up dramatically the performance in that mode. The spreadsheet control, I think I'm going to let Julian explain about, because that works across both. The conditional formatting applies to the tree grid control. I want to bring up the ribbon control next. So inside the ribbon control, I'll just launch the simple pad, and we're going to see, we will bring up the view. That's okay. Paul made a mistake. With the ribbon control, we introduced the new style for the universal office. Map control. Bring up maps. One of the things that when we're dealing with maps is the ability to work with multiple data providers. Now, Julie and I were looking at this the other day as to ski resorts that were actually in the US. So just by selecting one of the data providers and an overlay layer of, say, ski maps, I could actually zoom in to Colorado and see exactly what ski resorts were quite close to where Julian is, which was really, really nice. In fact, if I keep zooming down here, as I get closer, we actually get to see the different overlays that we can apply. Now, whether you're into cycling, hiking, etc., you can see, I'm just trying to find some nice mapping patterns here, zoom in, how those overlays tend to work. Now, I did promise Julian that I was going to zoom into my office here in Australia, but being dark outside, you wouldn't be able to see anything anyway. Now, to be fair to all our WPF fans out there, Julian, a lot of the other items that are on the What's New list also transcend WPF as well. So what we might do is switch over the presenter view to you, and
Okay.
you can take it over from there.
All right, I will do so. So if you make me the presenter, I will check out, show you my screen. I believe you can see that now. Let me
You
just
certainly can.
verify. Okay, so here we are. So I'm going to talk about WPF. Thanks, Paul, for describing a lot of the new features and functionality in Winforms. And as Paul said, there is still a lot more to show. So let's, without any further ado, talk about WPF, overview of some of the major things that are new in WPF, our WPF suite. First of all is our brand new report designer for WPF. I'm sure you all know the Winforms report designer. It was the first one we did, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. Trying to remember, and I didn't look it up, but I'm sure it's around then. So we now have a report designer for WPF. It has a lot of the same functionality as the Winforms report designer. In other words, you create report templates which you can then run against data to create your report. We still have some features to add to the report designer, so we're not actually fully releasing it as a finished product. It's a CTP, or a community technology preview. So although you probably could put it in your production applications, my recommendation is to let it be for a couple of minor releases. We'll be adding some extra functionality to it. I know, for example, there is no data wizard, for example, for the report designer. But anyway, it's a control. You can create with it an end-user report designer very easily, and I'll be showing you that in a moment. Tab control has a new, pretty good browser-inspired tab style to it. I'll be showing you that immediately. Just think of your favorite browser like Chrome or Firefox or whatever, and the ability to move tabs around, and so on and so forth. The rich text editor, a couple of new things there, one of which I've missed out on this particular slide, is the ability to have comments. So you have that case where you have a group of people all collaborating on a document, and somebody writes the document and other people comment on the document. There's also a new layout API, and I'll be showing you that. PDF viewer, we've added support for bookmarks in the PDF. There's a new page display mode selection, so you can view several pages on the PDF. And we have added the ability to import and export form data. If you have PDFs which are forms, and you want to either populate the PDF form fields with data from outside, we can do that now, or export what people have actually entered into those forms. Document preview control replaces document viewer. I'll be showing you that. Don't worry about it. One thing I can't show you, unfortunately, because I am actually running on a non-Retina monitor here, is we've added much better Retina level resolution support, or high DPI support. No longer will you have a case of the jaggies on your very high resolution screens. Pivot grid and tree list, just like in Winforms, we have the new conditional formatting feature. I'll briefly show that. Paul briefly showed it as well, so I'll just verify that it's there in WPF. Some enhancements of the data grid and so on and so forth. The one thing about the data grid that's pretty amazing, just like as we were doing with the PDF viewer, we've improved the speed of data binding with the grid to such an extent it's like a order of magnitude faster than it was in the past. And there's been, performance improvements throughout the WPF suite, none of which I'm really going to call out. I would also remind people that Microsoft have also promised to improve the basic WPF runtime as well. Not quite sure where they're at on that particular project, but we are trying to improve the speed of our WPF controls. And let's do a little bit of fun stuff in action. So the very first thing I want to show you is the web browser inspired tabs. So let me launch that particular demo. I'm just going to open a new tabbed window here. It's basically a very simple looking browser application. So let me just load up a few web pages here. We'll take Microsoft, Google, and ourselves, and maybe Visual Studio. So here we have the standard looking kind of thing where we have a bunch of tabs and we can flip between the tabs. The tab pages are roughly the same kind of information, maybe from different sources and all that kind of stuff. And as you'd expect from a browser style tab, you can just move the tabs around and rearrange them very simply inside the window. You can also drag a tab off the window itself, so it creates a new window. And I'm sure you've used that kind of facility as well in your browsers. So this new browser-inspired tab control does all of that. And of course, if you really want to drag it back, we can drag it back and the window disappears. It has no more tabs in it. So very simple to demo, very nice for your end users. They will understand it completely, intuitively. So that's the browser-inspired tab control. I just managed to delete the, or remove the applications, just drag it back. I apologize about that. Next thing is the big one. So let me go to page 3 here. Is the reporting tool. I'm going to bring up the table report for now. I'll show you the drill down in a moment. So this is a fairly simple report here, nicely formatted already. One thing I want to show you is the new document preview, where I can grab this scroll bar, and now we're going to scroll pixel by pixel. So it's a very smooth user experience when you're scrolling from now on. Rather than the kind of jagged one we had before where we'd actually scroll row by row or something like that. So it's very much a smoother experience for your end users. So here we have this, this nice report, and we can now launch the report designer and do some work on it. I think the supplier, for example, ought to be, let's use Calibri instead. So there we go. Calibri. We'll make it nice and big, maybe bold as well. And notice on the left-hand side here, we have a toolbox with a whole bunch of different controls that you can drop onto the report form, the report designer. Obviously, we're showing a header band here, and then I've lost my thought. The heading band and the header band, the actual data bands, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, all of the relevant items are there inside the report designer. So if I save that, what will happen now is, as I close the report designer, notice the word supplier has grown in size, DevExpress, I've moved to the left-hand side of the footer, and so on and so forth. So the report designer, as I said, is there as a CTP. It's available. You can play around with it. Production-wise, remember, it's still in beta. There are bugs. There is missing functionality that we're still adding, but we'll be adding that throughout. I would dare say we'll be adding throughout in minor updates all the way through to the next major update, which will be 15.2. We'll be releasing that as a fully fledged tool. So going back to the demo page, next thing I want to show you is to show you that just as in Winforms, we have new conditional formatting available for the tree view and the grid, and as Paul showed you for Winforms, essentially you have this new conditional formatting option on the context menu. whereby you can manage the rules for displaying different formats. And this is a great tool for your end users to analyze data in different ways, where they can maybe show the top 10 items in a particular column, for example, in a different way. So it's very much a data analysis type tool. It's a great way of visually imparting important information to the end user. And just like in the Windows Forms version, their ability to just select rules according to particular columns, you can declare new rules, and so on and so on and so forth. So conditional formatting is there in the tree view as I'm showing here, but it's also there in the grid and the pivot grid and so on. Next on the list, let's jump over to the rich text editor, which is on the next page. And a couple of new things there. One is the ability to add comments. So as I said, you have some kind of collaborative document between a bunch of users. You're presumably saving it in the cloud or some common folder. And someone writes the document and other people want to comment on the document as we go through. So here we have, for example, a document, and there are a bunch of comments already in that document. You essentially can delete documents, you can add new documents. So I really hate that word, cyber informaticians. So let's highlight it, and then what I'm going to do is add a new comment saying, I don't know, I hate this word. There we go. And as you notice, because I was first in the list, it's renumbered all the other all the other comments in the document itself. So we can hide those documents, we can show them, and we can change the username, for example, in this particular application, so we can add other comments from other people. So documents, an essential feature for collaborative type editing of documents, and it's now there in WPF 15.1. The other item for the rich text editor is a new layout API. This is a way for you to investigate the structure of the document, not necessarily the text in the document, but the structure of it. So what we've done with this particular demo application is to use the layout API to populate a tree list. And so we have what we're calling a document layout tree. So if I open up page 3, for example, it has a footer, it has a page area, it has a floating picture, and it has a text box. Let's open up the page area a bit. Oh, there's only one column in that. Lots of rows of data in there. Let's have a look at row 13. It has a plain text box. There it is. It has a little space. Notice how the structure of the document helps you understand what the document is all about. And using this layout API, you can then start doing some interesting things in the background, not necessarily to populate a tree list, for example, but to do some interesting things with the structure of the document in the background. Like, for example, finding all of the header information, and so on and so forth. So layout API is there in both Winforms and WPF, a nice way of you to analyze and manipulate the structure of your document, not necessarily the text in the document. Next thing is to have a quick look at the spreadsheet. And these things are available, these new features are available in Winforms as well. And let me just load up the document, and this is where, unfortunately, we show that it's a beta. My screen has just, my application has just died, so let me just kill it and then start it up again. Obviously, these are things that we're going to be looking at for before release. So I was looking at the data validation part of the spreadsheet, And here it is. So what we have here is the ability to add comments. So here we have a bunch of comments on columns in this particular mini spreadsheet. So things like the employee ID must be such and such. So these comments are basically describing the structure of the document to people who are going to be updating that document. So the other thing that we've added here is the ability to have data validation. So I've selected the salary field here, and it says down here that it can only be in the range 600 to 2,000. So let's add a salary of 6,000. What happens is we get an error message. It's failed the validation. And let me show you what that looks like in behind the scenes, if you like. So we'll select the data validation dialog here, and what it's saying is this particular column has to be a whole number, and it has to be between 600 and 2,000. And if there is an error, then we stop everything and we say basically the salary can be set in that range. We could add an input message if we wanted to, and but there are different criteria for declaring data validation for your spreadsheet. An example over here is this particular one. This particular column says essentially it has to be a member of the list or a list, and the list is this particular range, H4 to H9. H4 to H9 is this range here. So anything I enter in here has to appear in here. So let's just play around with that and say dev, and again the value entered. So there's no error message at this particular point. I could add an error message to that particular data validation rule. So data validation is there as part of your spreadsheet, especially for spreadsheets where you're asking other people to input information into the spreadsheet and so on. So ability to restrict user input. Headers and footers, just like in Excel, you're printing your spreadsheet and you want a header on every page and you want a footer on every page. So we've added the facility to add headers and footers to your printout of your spreadsheets. And just like in Excel, essentially the header and footer are viewed as three distinct areas. We have a left area, central area, and a right area. And the same with the footer, so we have a date, and there's the ability to add fields essentially. So the date is today, and we have these fields called page number and number of pages in the whole report. So if I just add Julian here, center footer, Julian. So notice the we have the date field there. We have page field names, pages field names, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to put this into my footer, if I could type properly. There, Julian's version. Click OK, and then do the print preview. And sorry about that, appeared on the wrong monitor. So we have the header as declared, and if we go down to the bottom, we have today's date, and in fact it says Julian's version. And page 1 of 1, there's only one page in this particular spreadsheet when printed. So headers and footers for the print, nice feature to have for your spreadsheet. And that is all I really have to show you. So let's jump back over here. Now it's time for Q&A. So Amanda.
Question time.
It's question time. You're taking over from Amanda, are you?
I'm taking over from Amanda today for questions.
I notice in the background my questions pane, lots of answers already.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
We're getting quite a lot of questions, obviously, in things like charting. Some of the functionality we showed in Winforms, is that also available in WPF? For some of it, the answer is yes. Some of it obviously will come in either maintenance updates or in 15.2. Now, one gentleman did ask about the tab demo that you did for WPF, Julian. Is that available in Winforms?
To be honest, I don't know.
Well, the answer is yes.
Oh, the answer is yes. Okay, there we go.
It's the document. The
see what happened?
That.
You concentrated on WinForms. I concentrated on WPF. So, okay, brilliant.
So the docking managers had that functionality for doing tabbed style windows for a little while already now anyway.
Oh, okay.
There was a point out that there's been some enhancements to the message box control as well. So, for example, now the message box will automatically wrap long text and improve the overall appearance of the message.
Oh,
and
lovely.
The new extra dialogue can also display custom controls in its client area.
Oh, okay. Nice.
There's a question here. How about mail merge feature with a header footer area repeated on every page? So I don't believe that mail merge is supported inside the header footer area. I'm not sure.
I don't think so. I know we support normal header footer fields, but we are talking about spreadsheet. We're not talking about rich text editor, for example.
No, we're talking spreadsheet.
We're talking spreadsheet.
Because we can do mail merge in spreadsheet, but the question really was related to incorporating that inside the header and footer.
I don't know. I'd have to defer that to the team and see what they say.
One from Richard Miller. In charting, are there any heat or tree maps?
No.
Not at this stage.
Not at this stage. Heat maps is one of those things I'd really like to have, but there's always something else to do first.
Absolutely.
It's a story of life, really, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Now, the question from Eddie, is there anything new with the layout control? I'll answer it, Julian, because it's a WinForms question.
Oh, okay.
I mean, obviously, the layout control can now be created and updated using code, which is really exciting, but there is a new table layout as well. And so with this update, we've introduced a new layout style where items are arranged across a table, and you can specify column and row position, span values, and other table settings. Wow. So hopefully that covers the requirements there.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's a question here from Kamala. It said there's an enhancement to scheduler control in the beginning. Did I miss anything, or is there anything new? So the scheduler control, there's a couple of enhancements to that in the WinForms side. That is, the time marker behavior is now more consistent with the time indicator that you would be used to seeing inside Outlook. And you can now have times and information attached to an appointment. So that can be used to correctly calculate the appointment start and end dates. And as fast as I'm trying to read these, the team are in the background answering them as well, which is great. Oh, here we go. Will the conditional formatting editing be available in XAF, Julian?
I have no idea.
Second part of the question, are we having a what's new in XAF?
There's nothing planned as yet. I do know that Dennis has been blogging away. Maybe we should ask Dennis whether there's enough to do a webinar on XAF.
Well, I can give you I can give you the 10-second overview of what's new in XAF if you want.
Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead, do it.
So, web page templates and optimized theme for touch display, such as tablets. There's a new notifications module being released. We've got entity framework support in the workflow module. Woo. There's been improvement in the performance of web apps and enhancements to the application settings, storage, and management mechanism, as well as a number of enhancements inside the desktop and web UI. I'm not sure that there is enough to do a full presentation on it, but certainly, as you say, check the blogs and certainly reach out to the team if you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. The blog posts that Dennis puts out are very detailed indeed. So I would well recommend people go to our community site. It's community.devexpress.com, or maybe it's devexpress.com/community, and take a look at the blogs that Dennis has been putting out on the new features in XAF in 15.1.
Now, there's lots and lots of questions here, Julian.
Oh, my word.
I think one of the things that we will do, to be fair to everybody, is obviously take a copy of all the questions and make sure that any that don't get answered, you can blog about.
Yeah. So I see one from Russell. Does WPF have a camera control like WinForms? No. Maybe in the future. When can we expect coded UI support for WPF, says Abdul? We're still working on it. Maybe 15.2, not making any promises. Let me see what else I can quickly answer here. WinForm chart designer enhancements would be available in WPF. Obviously, if we do it for WinForms, it makes sense for us to do it for WPF as well. There's just a single chart team, so they have to streamline their work and schedule it and all that kind of stuff. So I would say it's probably going to appear in WPF. I can't guarantee it's going to be there in 15.2.
Will there be a HTML specifics webinar? Do you want to bring up your next slide, Julian?
Oh, yeah. Good point. Here we go. Yes. As Paul said right at the beginning, this is only day 2 of our series of webinars on 15.1. So tomorrow, June 3rd, there's What's New for ASP.NET and MVC, presented by Mihul Hari and Don Vibier. June 4th, so that's Thursday, What's New for Reporting and Dashboards, by these complete interns that we just hired for the day. That's somebody called Julian Bucknall and somebody called Paul Usher. We'll be describing what's new for reporting and dashboards. On Friday, we shall be doing our client-side stuff and what's new for DevExtreme, and there's some good stuff in there, let me tell you. And that's Mihul and Don again. And June the 9th, Code Rush for Roslyn. Mark Miller will be showing the preview of this new product.
I think we need to have a picture of an alien for that one, Julian.
The Roslyn alien, yeah.
Now, there was a really good question asked by Brian. Do you see WinForms and WPF as viable solutions 3, 5, or 10 years down the road? Should we be looking to migrate forward from WinForms to WPF and or universal apps? Now, that's quite an in-depth question, and I think on the short, I certainly believe that the future of desktop development is WPF. And of course, as we said, if you start looking at WPF working with XAML, then you're going to be setting yourself up for the likes of universal apps as well. And with that, I'm going to be focusing, or my focus really for this year is to look at how to take the traditional WinForms developer kicking and screaming into WPF land.
Well, considering I consider myself, okay,
That's good grammar.
I consider myself more of a WinForms developer than a WPF developer. I guess I'm going to be one of those kicking and screaming. So I'm looking forward to those particular webinars in the next couple of months and all the rest of it. To address the broader question, what we're hearing from Microsoft is that, if you like, Windows 10 is going to be the last almost major version of Windows, and basically updates to Windows will appear through Windows Update and all the rest of it. In which case that means I can't see WinForms quote going away or WPF going away. I can imagine that people will migrate to, say, universal apps, just so they have a broader range of devices to develop against or develop to target. And 10 years time, I have no idea what the whole Windows environment is going to be like. absolutely no idea. I think back 10 years and, Visual Studio had only just come out and Winforms had only just come out and so on. There's been a lot of change in the last 10 years. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 10? What devices will all you be using and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. And I think given looking down that 3 to 5 year path, if you start looking at migrating apps over to the XAML style platforms, you're going to be future proofing. And
yeah, absolutely.
We'll be covering a lot more of that.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to just say as well, there's a lot of people asking some more technical questions in here or some suggestions, and if you haven't already, please add these to the support center. It's the #1 place to get the team's attention and where we look through for feature requests. So things, and you may have already done this, and if so, add it again. Votes count, but it's really important that you don't just ask them on these live presentations. If there's specific features you want, get it registered in there. The teams look through that regularly as to what information or what features people are asking for.
And with that, I think it's like 1 minute to. My clock is going to chime any moment. So we've had our full hour. I think Amanda will be chucking us off the internet now or something. So if you do have any questions, please email support. Obviously, they will be able to give you information and give you, code samples or point you to places where you can find out more information. There's Paul's information and my information if you have some more general type questions. Do please, contact us and we'll be glad to help you out or point you to people who can help you out. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you, Paul. And
Amanda's going to wrap up, I think, Julian.
Okay.
I think that clock chime brought me perfectly back into the webinar.
Indeed.
All right, everybody. Like Paul and Julian mentioned, we are doing these 15-point webinars all week. You can register at devexpress.com/webinars, and today's webinar will be available on our DevExpress YouTube channel. The link is posted in the chat box. And that is it for this one. Thank you so much to Paul and Julian. Thank you all for joining us. And of course, thank you for choosing DevExpress. Bye-bye.